On July 4, 1902, during Independence Day celebrations, the narrow-gauge Eureka and Palisade Railroad in Nevada ran an excursion train for a public picnic. Passengers rode in boxcars coupled to locomotive number 5 named Palisade, built by Baldwin in 1876. This 86-mile line, active from 1875 to 1938, connected the town of Eureka to the Union Pacific Junction at Palisade. During circus exhibitions in 1937 and 1938, renowned Western actor Tom Mix drove a distinctive rugged model, a 1937 Cord 812 supercharged Phaeton, fitted with a supercharged V8 engine that gave it speed and strength. Its design, marked by retractable headlights and original lines, underscored the automaker's innovation. Mix, famous for stunts and daredevil scenes, paired his talent with the car to thrill audiences. At the end of the 19th century, a group of entrepreneurs led by William F. Cody, then famous as Buffalo Bill, and businessman-politician George T. Beck, envisioned founding a city in the northwestern region of Wyoming. They chose a prime site on the banks of the Shoshone River, close to the east entrance of Yellowstone National Park, recognized as the world's first of its kind. On February 13, 1866, 12 ex-Confederates, veterans of the recently ended conflict, robbed the Clay County Savings Association in Liberty, Missouri. They seized about $58,000, roughly just under $1 million today. In the chaos, bystander George Wymore was shot and killed by one of the raiders. Joseph and Francis Corbal were brothers from Bohemia, a key part of Central Europe. In the late 19th century, driven by economic changes and the search for new opportunities, they decided to move to the United States. Over the years, both amassed great wealth and renown, propelled by the excellence of their products. Thus, they founded Corbal Champagne cellars, which even after decades remain among the most prestigious in the world. Despite the growth of automobiles in rural Montana at the start of the 20th century, one could still see freight consists running on tracks laid in the 1880s, a period when railroad infrastructure was crucial to regional economic development. Manny Hyman's Saloon, built during the feverish Silver Rush, was the scene of Doc Holliday's last gunfight in Leadville. The city outshone Tombstone in the Arizona Territory, boasting 120 saloons, 118 gambling houses, 110 beer gardens, and 35 brothels. Note the contraption beside the sidewalk clock. It is a pioneering electric meter, a reminder that Leadville already had electricity in 1883. In 1917, Ernest Burkhart, nephew of influential white rancher William King Hale, married Molly Kyle, a member of the Osage Nation. At that time, the Osage were receiving high incomes from oil rights on their land. Without Molly's knowledge, Ernest and Hale plotted to eliminate her relatives in order to seize those valuable resources. In 1926, after an investigation by the Bureau of Investigation, later the FBI, both were found guilty and sentenced to prison. During the harsh winters that struck the frontier region, military authorities issued soldiers a basic clothing kit to face the extreme temperatures. The kit included wool socks, trousers, and shirts, along with long underwear and suitable coats. However, the material quality was poor, and wear appeared after only a few washes, causing tears, holes, and discoloration. With no replacements expected, soldiers improvised as best they could to stay warm. In the closing years of the 19th century, the Bartlesville area, on land historically inhabited by the Cherokee, underwent significant changes. In 1897, a successful oil well drilling sparked a black gold rush. Shortly thereafter, in 1899, a railroad line was laid to speed the transport of that resource and other goods. These advances attracted many settlers and investors, altering the local landscape and boosting the economy. The G.S. Garcia Harness Shop, founded by Spanish immigrant G.S. Garcia in Elko, Nevada, at the end of the 19th century, became a recognized center for leatherwork and saddlery. It produced harnesses, saddles, boots, and hats for cowboys, ranchers, and rodeo performers who valued its quality. In 1913, after operating on Silver Street since 1894, it moved to Commercial Street, a busier part of town, reinforcing its regional influence. This saddle dates to 1890, when the Indian subcontinent was still under British Raj rule. It was found at the Townsend and Pickett Ranch, an old farm located in what was then Indian Territory, today part of the states of Oklahoma and Kansas. The piece shows utilitarian features with a wooden tree, leather seat, and metal stirrups. At the end of the 19th century, Lake County in inland California drew visitors seeking its hot springs and mountain and lake scenery. The lack of a railroad line made the journey difficult, so travelers relied on steamboats that crossed the waters or horse-drawn coaches on the roads. One of the most popular spots was the Tallman House, where guests found comfortable lodging, good food, and suitable entertainment, making it a refuge for enjoying the region's climate and natural resources. One morning, the notorious outlaw Belle Starr was heading back to her modest cabin at Younger's Bend, in what was then Indian Territory, now Oklahoma. She had spent the previous night celebrating at a friend's house and was returning with a newly gifted saddle. Unaware that someone lay hidden behind a shrub waiting to attack, she approached and 2 shots rang out. One hit her horse, bringing it down instantly. The other struck her back, piercing her heart. In the middle of the territorial expansion era, on one of Prescott's busiest streets, lined with inns and gambling spots, stood a saloon that caught every passerby's eye. Known as Cobweb Hall, the name came from the spider webs that accumulated on its beams and walls. Miners, cowboys, strangers, and adventurers gathered there, each drawn by the unusual atmosphere. G.S. Garcia, pictured second from the left in a 1913 rodeo photograph, had established the G.S. Garcia Harness Shop on Silver Street in Elko, Nevada, in 1907. In 1913, however, he relocated the building to Commercial Street, boosting saddlery activity in the region. Today, that space keeps Garcia's legacy and the cowboy story alive, having become the Cowboy Arts and Gear Museum. For many years, movie prop companies turned to the widely available Springfield 1873 rifle to represent flintlock weapons in period scenes, notably in the 1960 film The Alamo, starring John Wayne. To achieve this effect, a brass or metal flintlock assembly, hammer and frizzen, was adapted onto the Springfield's original screw, mounted over the original hammer and lock plate. In this period photograph, we see the skilled saddler G.S. Garcia displaying one of his leather creations in front of his own workshop in the small town of Santa Margarita, California. Beside a horse outfitted with its new saddle, Garcia demonstrates the importance of this craft to life in the Old West. This scene was captured in the 1880s, when he was already among the most sought-after saddle makers in the region. General Francisco Pancho Villa, a central figure in the Mexican Revolution that began in 1910, became known for leading cavalry forces in decisive conflicts. His saddle, considered the most valuable in the Western world, accompanied him in battles against the governments of Porfirio Diaz, Victoriano Huerta, and Venustiano Carranza, and was sold at auction for $625,000. With an austere demeanor, Sheriff James E. McGee established himself as one of the most dependable law enforcers, playing a key role in removing the outlaw element that had plagued southern Arizona for decades. When he died of stomach complications, he was praised as a fearless officer, a man of the West, and one of the best marksmen in all Arizona. James Stott, born in 1863 in North Billerica, Massachusetts, worked as a cowboy and farmer before moving to Arizona in search of opportunities on the new frontiers. He became involved in the notorious Pleasant Valley War between the Graham and Tewksbury families. Both cattle-raising clans accused each other of rustling and slaughtering rival stock, triggering violent acts and reprisals. George Swan built the slippery Ford House Inn in El Dorado County, California, in the early 1860s. The building on the Carson emigrant route served meals and offered beds to roughly 200 passengers who crossed the Sierra Nevada daily in stagecoaches bound for the Comstock lode in neighboring Nevada. Reports indicate, however, that the substitute cook, hired among other way stations, did not always separate dog meat or insist that her children wash their hands before reaching into the pots. Cowgirls of the American West, from the late 19th to the early 20th century, worked on cattle ranches and performed in rodeos and traveling shows. They handled herding, cutting, shoeing, and drove herds long distances to railheads, facing trampling predators, bandit raids, conflicts in indigenous territories, and sudden storms. In Jackson Hole, Wyoming, the setting of the 1980 film The Mountain Men, an indigenous extra inserts a .45-70 blank cartridge into the breech of a stone rifle, a prop built on a Springfield 1873 with a fake flintlock mount. This type of scenic weapon, used in Hollywood since the 1930s, cut rehearsal time and minimized risks, speeding the shooting schedule. January 28, 1878. Gunman Dave Rudabaugh and 5 accomplices try to rob the safe at the depot and hold up a freight train in Kinsley, Kansas, on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe line just a few miles from Dodge City. The night telegrapher spots the plan and sends an alarm. At dawn, Ford County Sheriff Bat Masterson leaves Dodge with 3 deputies, among them J.J. Webb, to hunt the raiders.